The boys practically dragged Elena to a rusted payphone outside a rundown and noisy train station. Elena was shivering, deep in the throes of withdrawal, her mind fractured. She didn't want to make the call. The shame was a physical weight, crushing her chest. A painful reminder of her frailty, her failures. "It's been years, Julian. She'll probably hate to hear my voice," Elena wept, her voice a raspy whisper. "She'll look at me like the rest of them do. Welcome to Deadend stories, where real crimes don't just end in death. They end in the kind of silence that follows you home. The rain in the city don't wash things clean, but rather makes the grime slick." At 45, Elena Vance looked into the cracked mirror of a public restroom and truly did not recognize the ghost staring back, her cheekbones sharp as knives, her eyes clouded by a heavy chemical fog. She was a stranger to the woman who once had a beautiful family, a lovely and palatable home, a distinguished career, and a smile that could melt the toughest. But the housing crises of the mid-90s, followed closely by the devastating divorce that stripped her of everything, she expected hands to reach out. Support from friends and family alike, those she had cared for and supported in time past. Their responses were rather incredible. Her brother told her she was reckless. Her closest friends whispered that she brought it on herself, judging the frantic, desperate choices she made as the ship went down. Isolation is a quiet poison. To numb its sting, Elena turned to the very thing they accused her of: surrender. She drifted into the dark, numbing embrace of substance abuse, drowning the judgment in a haze of cheap highs. But the heaviest toll was paid by her sons. Leo, at 17, and Julian, at 15, had grown up overnight. They weren't boys anymore. They were street kids, hardened by the concrete, sleeping in abandoned cars and learning how to hustle just to keep their mother alive. They become her guardians, a role no child should ever bear. One freezing Tuesday, Julian was rummaging through the waterlogged duffel bag that held the remnants of their entire lives, looking for a spare pair of dry socks for their mother on this cold, rainy day. His fingers brushed against something stiff beneath the lining. A water-stained, faded teal envelope. He pulled it out. The ink on the front was elegant, untouched by the dampness. To Elle from Sarah. "Don't ever forget the roof at midnight." Julian opened it. Inside was a letter from 25 years back, written by a girl named Sarah, Elena's high school best friend. It was filled with the vibrant, chaotic energy of youth. Tales of sneaking out, promises to conquer the world together, and a fiercely loyal declaration. "No matter where we end up, Elle, if the world burns down, you call me. I'll bring the matches or the fire truck. Always remember that." At the bottom was an old phone number and a childhood home address. When Julian showed it to Leo, the older brother scoffed, his eyes hardened by the streets. "It's a ghost story, Jules. Forget it." But Julian saw a spark. For the first time in years, he saw a doorway out of the dark. He saw what nobody saw. The hassle that followed was an agonizing marathon. It took 4 months of desperate, grinding effort, repeated calls, tracking, referrals. Julian used changes scraped from washing windshields to use payphones, only to find the number disconnected. He tracked down Sarah's maiden name through library computers, dodging security guards. He begged an internet cafe owner for 10 minutes of free Wi-Fi to search public word. Leo eventually joined in, driven by a fierce, protective need to give their mother one real chance. They finally tracked down an assistant to a prominent interior designer in Chicago who had Sarah's contact. It took another 3 weeks just to get past the assistant, to convince them that they weren't scammers, rather 2 desperate teenagers calling on behalf of a dying soul. The day of the phone call, the boys practically dragged Elena to a rusted payphone outside a dynamic, noisy train station. Elena was shivering, deep in the throes of withdrawal, her mind fractured by fear of rejection. She didn't want to make the call. The shame was a physical weight crushing her chest. After all these years, "She'll hate me," Elena wept, her voice a raspy whisper. "She'll look at me like the rest of them. She loved you before Mum. You guys had something special." But Julian pleaded, pressing the receiver into her trembling hand. "Just speak to her." Leo dropped the final coins into the slot. The dial tone gave way to a ringing. 1, 2, 3. "Hello." A sharp, professional, yet inherently warm voice answered. Elena's throat locked. The ambient noise of the train station faded into a dull hum. "Sarah," she choked out, her voice cracking. It's Elle." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. A heavy, profound silence stretched across the miles. Then, the professional veneer completely shattered. "Elle? Oh my God! Elle? Where have you been? I've been looking for you for the past 15 years. Sarah didn't judge her. Never asked why she was calling, or why she was calling from a payphone. Neither did she ask why her voice sounded ragged and broken. Instead, she wept with a fierce, protective joy that pierced straight through Elena's chemical fog. "Where are you right now?" Sarah demanded, her voice trembling but commanding. "Don't you dare hang up. Tell me where you are." That single phone call was the catalyst for a breathtaking avalanche of grace. Within 24 hours, a car arrived. Sarah hadn't just sent money, she had come herself. When the sleek black SUV pulled up to the gritty curb and Sarah stepped out, she didn't hesitate. She threw her arms around the gaunt, trembling woman she used to share a locker with, holding her as if she were made of gold, ignoring the dirt and the smell of the streets. The months that followed were a grueling, beautiful resurrection. Sarah financed a top-tier rehabilitation program for Elena, staying by her side through the agonizing sweat and tears of detox. She bought a small, sunlit apartment for Leo and Julian, enrolling them back into school and providing them with the counseling they so desperately needed to just be children again. But Sarah did something even more vital than spending money. She looked at Elena and saw Elena, not her failures. She reminded her of the girl who used to defend people from bullies, the girl who had a brilliant mind for literature, the girl who deserved to be loved. 2 years later, the sun rose over a quiet suburban street. Elena stood on the porch of a small, charming bookstore she now managed, a business Sarah had helped her launch, but that Elena now ran entirely on her own. Her eyes were clear. Colour had returned to her cheeks, and her hands were steady now. Leo walked past her wearing a university sweatshirt, throwing a playful arm around his younger brother Julian, who was laughing. A sound that no longer carried the weight of the streets. Elena watched them, her heart aching with a profound, overwhelming gratitude. The world had judged her, abandoned her, and written her off as a lost cause. But a forgotten letter and a bond forged in the innocence of youth had pulled her from the abyss. She had thought she was completely alone, but true friendship had held the line, waiting in the dark to guide her back home. If indeed you did enjoy this short but exciting story, kindly click and subscribe to Dark End Stories.